Hello, welcome friends. Today I'm very excited to be opening my package from Tales of Cloth to see what my little English paper pieces look like. I'm sure they just look like little pieces of paper, but I'm excited to see what size they are because, as I've said a couple times already, the quilt that I'm planning to make is about 42 inches wide. I really think these pieces are going to be really small. We'll see. I think it's going to take a lot of pieces to make that 42 inches. So here's the lovely little package, all nice and sealed up, away from the elements. Looks like there's a sticker in here. Yay, I love stickers. I do put them on my sewing machine. Don't tell. It's my crappy sewing machine, not my really good sewing machine. Yay, sticker. Sew for joy. That's perfect for my sewing machine. And so here's my little envelope of my pirouette paper. Oh, there's a lot of them. There are a lot of pieces in here. Here's a couple. Oh, I don't want to lose them. Pentagrams, that's not too bad. That didn't make any sense, did it? That's not quite a hand's breadth. These little diamonds will go between the star shapes. I'd like to find some of the star diamonds. This may be it. This may be the beginning star diamond. That's not huge. Some of these are tiny. Oh, some of these are teeny tiny. Look how tiny these are. Oh boy, I hope these little ones are a little further along after I've figured out this English paper piecing thing. There are a zillion of these teeny tiny little triangles, zillions and zillions and zillions. Oh my God, this is a little overwhelming. There's so many pieces of paper here. I'm gonna put them all back in the little envelope now. Look at that. Look at all those pieces. It's like a confetti parade. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm glad I pulled the big honkin' pentagrams out first because that helped me feel a little better about it. So I'm going to go play with these for a little bit. I'm gonna look at the pattern, which of course is linked to below, and see which of these I need to start working on first. And then I think we're gonna talk about fabric prep. That'll be fun. There's some very strong opinions about that. Do your own thing. Do it the way you want to do it. That's why I'm doing this on video, to kind of play with some different techniques, and we can look at the possibilities together. See you in a minute. So it's actually been more like a couple of days instead of a couple of minutes, but you saw me open my English paper pieces and there were a lot of them. So I brought them back to my sewing room and I put them together with the pattern, and I looked at the pattern to try to decide which pieces I needed to pull to use first for my first little star in the middle. And there were so many pieces, I was really overwhelmed. I felt like there were probably 576 different shapes in that envelope. So I separated all the shapes out and put them into these little baggies. And now I see that there are only 6 shapes, and that helps me feel a lot calmer about this project. These are the shapes for the smallest stars. There aren't a whole lot of pentagons, but for every pentagon there's 5 points to the star. So that's a lot of little star points. I like stars. That's one of the reasons I chose this quilt to make, because I'm much more of a stars person than a hearts person. This may be a lot of stars though. So I have a backup plan already in case I don't want to do the entire 40-inch quilt, which I'll be honest with you, I'm not seeing myself doing the entire thing at this point. And I even have a backup plan for that backup plan in case I decide not to do even my backup plan. But we will get to that much later. So I chose to buy all of the English paper pieces from Tales of Cloth. Worked out wonderfully. The other two options that you usually have for your English paper pieces are to cut the pieces out yourself. The template for that is usually provided with the pattern. And then you just cut out your pieces from your slightly thicker paper and then cut out your fabric from that. Another option that you may have for some quilts, and I know for the Tales of the Cloth quilts, definitely, one of the options you have is to buy a acrylic template. The acrylic templates that Tales of the Cloth sells has a 3/8 inch seam allowance printed on the template. So you can put that on your fabric and you can see exactly what your fabric piece is going to look like before you cut out around the acrylic piece with your rotary cutter or trace it and then cut with scissors or something like that. I know she sells those for the pirouette quilt. It's not what I decided to do. These pieces that I did get, you'll see these are not see-through. So I may have a bit of an issue when I come to trying to fussy cut my fabric. But I've done a little bit of work on it already, and I think I've got it figured out. So I'm excited to talk to you about that in the next video. Before we can cut out the pieces, though, we need to talk about preparing our fabric. There are two very strong schools of thought when preparing your fabric to make a quilt. Some people wash their fabric first, some people do not. I am generally for washing your fabric first. I've done a lot of work with hand-dyed yarn and things like that, and I know dye can bleed, and that makes me really nervous to put together an entire project and then throw it in the washing machine and it bleeds all over the place. There are now color catchers available that you can throw in with your laundry when you do launder the item so that that catches all of the extra dye that may be seeping out of it. So that's one solution if you choose not to wash your fabric first. One of the reasons that people who don't wash their fabric first prefer not to wash their fabric first is because when you wash and dry, especially your cotton fabric, it's going to shrink a little bit in the dryer. Now, if you put together your entire quilt before you wash it and then throw it in the washer and the dryer, that little bit of shrinkage that you get gives this beautiful antique feel to your quilt. It kind of puckers up, but just the slightest amount, just to give it a nice lived-in, used look. And I love that look. For this project, I've decided not to wash my fabric first. I mostly made that decision because I'm working with fat quarters, and it would be a really big pain in the butt to overlock around every one of those fat quarters. I would lose some of the fabric to edging and then wash it and then dry it. I'm not doing that for all of these, especially because I'm not exactly sure what fabrics I'm going to use entirely. So I am not washing. But what I am doing is starching. I use this inexpensive starch that I pick up at the grocery store. I know that some people don't like it because it can flake. It can put white flakes on your fabric. But the fancy pants, really expensive starch that I have picked up at the quilt shop, it has a trigger on it instead of a spray, instead of an aerosol spray. And that's really difficult for me to do, to really saturate the fabric. And I really didn't feel that it worked as well as my cheapo spray starch. But I found some tips online on how to avoid the white flaky appearance, and that's what I'm going to share with you now. So what I've done is I've really laid this on thickly, which I don't usually do, but I've sprayed my entire piece of fabric, and then I've rolled it up, and now I'm squishing it, and this spreads the starch throughout the fabric more evenly and makes sure that the fabric is saturated. You really want the starch to sit on your fabric so that it really soaks in before you iron it. And then when I iron on the back side of the fabric. And since I've been doing it this way, I have not had a problem with the little white flaky bits at all with my cheapo spray starch. And then when I go to cut my pieces out, I even have the option of spray starching those pieces again if I don't feel they're thick enough. Not sure exactly how that's going to work out with English paper piecing because I haven't done it before. But maybe I'll try some starch, some not starch, and we'll see what happens. So be sure to catch the next video to follow me along on my English paper piecing adventure. Please put any comments or questions down below, and we'll see you next time. Cheers!